radio and on 1395 AM. Talking Adelaide. This is Adelaide's FIVEAA.
Mostly sunny this afternoon, 25, with the 3 o'clock news. I'm Michaela Kamarek.
Are your dentures uncomfortable or causing you problems? Contact the experienced caring team at Dentures Direct SA today.
SA's had a slight drop in COVID case numbers in the past 24 hours. We've recorded 3,079 cases, while 2 people with the virus have died. Premier Stephen Marshall says hospitalisations have slightly increased.
Up to 285, but a reduction in ICU down to 24, and we maintain 5 people on ventilators, which again is the lowest we've seen for quite some time.
Teachers say their concerns about safety once school resumes haven't been resolved and strike action remains a possibility. The Education Union met with the Premier and Department officials today, pushing for the start of Term 1 to be delayed by 2 weeks. But that was rejected, and the union's Andrew Gold says they'll proceed with the vote on whether to strike on Wednesday, February 2nd.
We don't embark on this sort of action lightly or without due consideration. There's going to be some really complex issues we have to deal with. The concern amongst membership is so significant and the fear is so palpable.
Pharmaceutical company Moderna is working on a combined vaccine for COVID-19 and the flu. Nine's Michael Genovese reports.
A single injection that protects against influenza and COVID-19. The 2-in-1 vaccine is in the works, according to Moderna's CEO. The combination won't be ready until next year and only available in some countries.
Concerns over COVID-19 are adding an additional layer of complexity to Australia's humanitarian response in Tonga. A large volcanic eruption has cut communications and left a thick layer of ash blanketing the tiny Pacific nation. Tonga has implemented strict protocols to stop COVID-19 from entering the country during the pandemic. Foreign Affairs Minister Marise Payne says Australia is determined to ensure it remains COVID-free.
One of the things that we have been able to do during COVID is establish this Pacific humanitarian pathway. We have done that successfully in terms of ensuring any defence personnel are able to engage in those countries and support their COVID-free status where that's the case.
A memorial service has been held at Granville in Sydney to mark the 45th anniversary of Australia's worst rail disaster. 83 people were killed and 213 injured when a packed commuter train derailed as it approached Granville station, causing a bridge to collapse onto carriages. Phil was trapped in the wreckage for 3 hours and says he's still thankful for the emergency responders who made sure survivors like him are still alive.
I just tried to think it's a good day, really. I'm still here. That's the main thing, really.
Now turning to FIVEAA Sport.
Hardware stores have lots of stuff, but for sliding door parts, visit rollerco.com.au. This Australian Open tennis update, thanks to the super fast charging all-electric Kia EV6.
It's been a successful start for Australia on day 2 of the Open. 9 Shane McInnes is at Melbourne Park.
Sam Stosur and Chris O'Connell have both recorded first-up wins today. Stosur coming from a set down to defeat fellow wildcard Robin Anderson, while O'Connell won in 4. For Stosur, it's just the second time in 7 years she's reached the second round here at Melbourne Park. Currently on court, Perth's Madison Inglis is playing the match of her career as she searches for her first win at Grand Slam level. Elsewhere, Iga Swiatek and Garbina Muguruza won in straight sets, while former Wimbledon champ Petra Kvitova went down to Sorana Castella.
The 36ers will play their first game of the 2022 season tonight against the Wildcats at the Adelaide Entertainment Centre. And Manchester City and Chelsea have had 2 players each picked in FIFA's Men's World 11. Now checking FIVEAA traffic.
At Boden, expect delays on Hawker Street near Park Terrace. That's due to closures on Torrens Road for works. Melrose Park got water main works there. Dawes Road near Winston Avenue. Speed restrictions in place. Flagstaff Hill, speeds reduced on Flagstaff Hill Road near South Road for those upgrade works. And Mylene got restrictions for works on Henley Beach Road near South Road. Cameras today, Anzac Highway, Ashford and Lionel Avenue at Blair Athol. Dinner's sorted out of Porto. Succulent whole chicken, choice of sauce and any 2 sides, just $24.95. Add an extra large chips for $5. Order in store for a takeaway now. Adelaide's most accurate traffic on 5AA.
Now the 5AA forecast. Mostly sunny this afternoon, 25. Mostly sunny tomorrow, 29. Thursday partly cloudy, 35. And Friday a possible shower, 34. Right now it's 23. Now let's hear what's happening on 9 News Tonight.
A senseless rampage through the city, 60 cars damaged, the vandal on the run. The latest on crisis talks to prevent a statewide teachers' strike. Explosive claims Prince Andrew has a stuffed toy fetish. See the moment police shut down the Ashes celebrations of our SA heroes. And why taking cholesterol drugs can keep knees healthy too. I'm Kate Collins. See the full story on 9 News Tonight at 6.
Jade Robran on 1395, Adelaide's 5AA.
Good afternoon, 5 minutes past 3 o'clock. It is now time to talk motoring with our friend Trent Nicolet, Managing Director there at drive.com.au. Trent, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Jade. How are you? Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon and Happy New Year. I had a jingle to play, but it didn't play for me, so excuse the little silence there.
I had my dance ready to go as well. That's a shame.
I had Life is a Highway, but failed.
We like that one.
I know, it's a good one, isn't it? Very appropriate to be talking cars. Now, I'd love to ask you, last year we saw shortages of cars, new and old. What are we going to see in 2022?
Look, I wish I could give you listeners who are looking to buy a new car or about to buy a new car better news than I'm going to. But I think, judging by what we've been told and the best information that we can get our hands on, I think it's still going to be an issue, shortages that is, through until probably the end of 2022.
Gosh.
Without boring everybody with intimate details as to why, there's more than one reason. It's not just COVID, it's not just semiconductors, it's not just shipping, it's not just availability of parts, it's a whole bunch of things all cobbled together. And I think, unfortunately, we're just going to see the result of the fact that right-hand drive markets around the world are nowhere near as big in terms of volume, generally speaking, as left-hand drive markets.
Right.
And then also, we're such a small market down here in Australia that we will just have to wait for stock as it becomes available, and it might not be something that we can really do a lot about.
Oh, dear. Well, that's not good news, because that also means that we'll be paying a premium, won't it?
Well, potentially. I think rather than paying a premium, it's probably more accurate to say you just won't be able to drive as hard a bargain as you usually could. I think that's probably more accurate. Having said that, though, there's a lot of stock that you can get, and it's why if your listeners go to drive.com.au, where we put all our information there, we do tend to run stories where we try not to be telling the bad news, and we say these are the cars that you can buy, and these are the cars that you can get your hands on if you want to grab one now. So there's still, if you look at medium SUVs, for example, there's a lot of talk in the last 2 years about the Toyota RAV4, especially the hybrid. Now, there have been some stock shortages of that car, but if you want to get your hands on a Mitsubishi Outlander, which is a fantastic new entrant in that segment, not hybrid, but if you want to get your hands on a regular petrol-powered Outlander, you can get one. So it's not all bad news. It's just maybe a little bit of thinking outside the box as well.
Okay. If you'd like to ask Trent any question at all about a car, now's the time to give us a buzz. You might be on the lookout for a new car. You might be thinking about selling or buying a second-hand car. If you want to talk to us about electrics, could be a classic car, anything at all, give us a call, 8223 30000, and of course the text line is also open. Ford lovers, this is good news. You've got spy photos of a new Ford coming out?
Yeah, so as your listeners are no doubt aware, the Ford Ranger is going to be all new for 2022, and I nearly said next year because I nearly forgot that we're already in next year.
You wouldn't be the first person.
No, I know, yeah, I know. I've got to drum that into my head. So it's going to be arriving this year. Now, your listeners probably are also aware, Jade, that one of the most popular vehicles in Australia, so it's up there with Toyota Hilux as the top two selling vehicles in Australia.
Yeah, why is it so popular?
Geez, I reckon you and I could spend all afternoon trying to work that out.
It's really,
okay. I think. Look, the interesting thing with dual cabs, and I won't forget what you just asked me. I'll answer that in a second. But I think the interesting thing with dual cabs, Jade, is that they're actually not great vehicles to drive day to day. They don't ride particularly well. They're big, they're cumbersome. They've got fairly basic diesel engines. They don't have the cabin amenity of a sedan or a wagon or even an SUV.
I feel like they're kind of fashionable, though.
Exactly that. They're fashionable.
Uh-huh.
They say a lot about the owner. Like, there used to be the joke that, a bloke like me in his mid-40s would buy one sort of to prove how blokey and macho he is. But in big cities like Adelaide and Sydney, you're seeing more and more women driving them around. So I think that argument kind of goes out the window because there's male and female buyers. So I don't necessarily think that holds much water anymore. What does, though, aside from, as you said, being popular and making a statement, is the fact that they can be a tax offset for businesses because they're commercial vehicles. You can actually do clever things with the way you offset your tax if it's a vehicle that you, in inverted commas, use for work. So,
which I don't know that a lot of people know about.
I think a lot of people don't know about them. I think people who've got a canny accountant know about them. But, you talk to a lot of people who've got small businesses, and it could be, you could be thinking outside the box. Like, you might have a coffee shop and you might think, well, why the hell would I need a ute? Well, you can pick up all of your supplies.
Coffee.
Exactly right. Your coffee and all the stuff that you need for the coffee shop. So there are ways and means of looking at it a little bit differently, and that's one of the reasons that they're so popular in Australia. And then to answer that original question, the Ranger is going to be all new for 2022. Where 10 years ago, when it first came out, approximately 10 years ago, it shared a platform with the Mazda BT50. In 2022, it'll share a platform with the Volkswagen Amarok, but we won't see that until 2023 or late 22.
Now that is hugely popular, isn't it, that one?
Unbelievable. And like I said, the top two selling vehicles in Australia last couple of years, Ford Ranger and Toyota Hilux, and Amarok has been incredibly popular in Australia. So those spy photos that we've got are our best look so far at the Ranger Raptor, which is their off-road performance version of the Ranger. The current one has also been incredibly popular. This new one, there's no reason to think that it won't be. So, yeah, if you want to take a look at what it's going to look like, or pretty close to what it's going to look like, head over to the site and you can see some photos.
Now, our show is being broadcast live streaming now, and people would see me jumping on my phone, and it's not because I'm checking my social media accounts, it's because I'm jumping on to see what these spy photos look like. So I'm just waving to the camera now. They're probably thinking, gosh, she must be really bored. She's just checking her phone. But it's not. I'm wanting to see what this car looks like. We've got Troy on the line. Hello, Troy.
Hello, peoples. How are we?
We're really good. What's your question?
Yeah. So, before that, Jade, do you know what they call that when somebody's talking to you and you're on your phone, on your mobile phone?
Rude?
It's called fubbing.
Oh.
Yeah, PHNUBBING.
Another
fubbing is.
Okay.
I've never heard of that, but Troy, I'm getting used to it because Jade does it to me all the time. As soon as I mention a car, she's straight on the phone.
Roasted.
Hey, you might put me back in my box, Trent, just saying, thinking outside the box or outside the square. I've actually thought, and I'm pretty sure it's the same right across Australia, with like any auto, cars, trucks, whatever. Do you think they should jump ahead, maybe scrap 2022 as a model and go straight to 2023, being that a lot of them will come in 2023?
Yeah. It's not as silly as it sounds, Troy. I tell you what, there's a few people in the automotive industry that would like to scrap 2021 and 2020 as well. Let me tell you. Look, it's actually not as crazy as it sounds, because what we talk about a lot is if you get a 2022 plated car in December 22, in manufacturer land in January 23, it's already a year old, even though you've only had the car for a month, because the compliance plate flips over. So I think manufacturers are going to have to be telling that story to customers a lot for the next 12 months, because you might go in a really popular vehicle that you can't get your hands on now. You might go in and put a deposit on it in early February 22. You might not get it till November 22, and it's still going to be plated a 22 vehicle. So, look, it's not going to happen. You and I, what we're talking about here, won't happen. But I tell you what, it's not as crazy as it sounds.
No, good idea. And also, what does that then mean money-wise? If you're buying a 2022 December, but you're picking it up in January, it's classified as a year old. I mean, they say that by the time you drive it out of the yard, you've dropped, tens of thousands.
Yeah, I think, Jade, with that, the reality of it is if there's an all-new model that's coming, that's going to be a vastly better vehicle, so say you buy the last Ford Ranger that's on sale in the next couple of months and then a brand new Ford Ranger comes a month later, it's going to be very hard to assume that the value of the old one's going to go anywhere other than down because the new one is just going to be so much better. However, if it's a vehicle that's right at the end of its life cycle, like if you got one of the last 200 series Land Cruisers before the 300 came along, I don't necessarily think that if you picked it up at the end of 21, it's already a year old now, but you can't buy them anymore. So it is the end of the line, right? So I think it's hard to predict that kind of stuff. And one thing we have learnt in the last 2 years is there's not a lot of rhyme or reason into the value of cars and why they do what they do because the pandemic has really thrown that rule book out.
Oh, well and truly. Let's talk to Doug. He's called in to ask you a question. Hello, Doug. Welcome to the program.
Yeah, thanks. Good day. So I'm lucky enough to have a sort of a modern classic. I've got a 996 Carrera. A couple of people have told me on social media platforms I've got to be careful about the age of my tyres because it's the sort of car that they don't get driven every day. So tyre shops say around 8 years is the life out of any set of tyres. Is that right? Do you know or not?
It's funny, I was only asking a tyre shop about this the other day, Doug, or just before the Christmas break, because I bought a set of tyres for a car that I'm building that, funnily enough, hasn't been built as quickly as I was hoping it would be. So the tyres have been sitting around going nowhere. And you're right, somewhere between, depending on who you speak to, it's somewhere between 5 and 8 years, depending on the type of tyre, the brand of tyre, what sort of condition you've kept it in, whether it's sitting on a shelf in a cool room or actually on the car, how often you drive the car, all those sorts of things. Now, it's important to, you don't want people to be scared. If you've got a 5-year-old tyre on your car and you run around the block and you do 50 k's an hour going into and out of town, you're not going to have a problem. But the critical element with a performance car like yours is if you're going to take your car out on one of the highways running into or out of Adelaide and do 100 to 110 k's an hour for a few hours on end, you don't want hard tyres. And that's what happens. Tyres harden as they get old and then they'll eventually crack. For listeners who don't know what we're talking about here, they will eventually crack and degrade. So, I would agree with whoever you spoke to that somewhere between that 5 to 8 year mark is really what you need to be thinking about. And the other thing is, with performance tyres on cars like Porsche 911s and, AMGs and BMWs and stuff, the tyres aren't that cheap. So it's a pretty expensive exercise to replace stuff that you're not using that often. But that is good information that you've been given.
So, surprisingly enough, for my car, it's only Pirelli and Michelin who make the spec tyres.
That sounds about right. Yep.
Continental and a couple of others used to, but now that it's over 20 years old, it's a little bit different. So, it is what it is.
Yeah, and isn't it scary to think that a 996 Porsche is 20 years old? I mean, it's hard to believe. It seems like yesterday they were released. But you're right. When you call it a modern classic, mate, and I'm not saying this just because you own one, you are 100% on the money. They have started to go up in value. They're finally getting the appreciation they deserve. And, they're a Porsche 911. At the end of the day, they'll always be a very special car.
I've always wanted one, and I just thought I'd buy one while I could still afford one. So,
mate, it's a smart move because I'll tell you, in a couple of years, you probably won't be able to afford one, mate, because the price is going right up.
They just keep going north, these classic cars. It just is bizarre, isn't it? And are you expecting that trend to continue this year as well?
Yeah, we're in a really interesting transition, Jade. Just last week, I spent some time with Bentley because they were releasing a new version of their Flying Spur, which is their large sedan, and they were talking about the fact that, and I use them as an example because they are currently the largest producer of V12 engines anywhere in the world at the moment. So they make conventional performance V12 engines. By 2030, they'll be switching to pure electric vehicle only. So come sometime in 2029 or early 2030, the last brand new petrol Bentley will drive out of a dealership, and that'll be the end of it. Now, two things can happen at that point, Jade. What can happen is people who've got a thirst for new technology and younger people who don't have the same relationship with a car that I have or my father has, they might not care about these old cars with this weird old technology and you've got to stop and put petrol in them and all this complexity. They might just not even show any interest, in which case the value of them won't continue to climb. The other alternative, though, is that people like Doug, who we were just talking to, and me and anybody else who's interested in old cars, might all of a sudden think, hang on, you can't get them anymore. I've got to get my hands on whatever it was that I was interested in 5 or 10 years ago that I might be able to afford now, because you can't buy them. There's a finite supply. As they get driven and used, there's less and less of them on the road. And a perfect example of that would be garden variety Commodores. Like if you go back to trying to find a 1988, 89, 90 Commodore now,
good luck.
There were tens of thousands of them on the road when they were new. And it's very, very hard to find a good original high quality one now secondhand, because they were never considered to be special cars. So the value of the ones that you can find have gone up, and I tend to think that'll continue to happen.
We've got to take a really short break. We'll be back after. But if you've got any questions at all about cars, you may be in the market for a new one, looking at selling or buying a second-hand one. Could be on the topic of tyres or classic cars. Now's the time to call in 8223 0000, because Trent will be with us for just a few more minutes.
5AA's afternoon show is streaming live right now. Check it out. Head to the 5AA live stream on Facebook, YouTube, or at 5AA.com.au.
Introducing the all-new Kia EV6, our first fully electric high-performance vehicle. With ultra-fast charging and over 510 kilometres of driving range. The Kia EV6 has advanced tech, a 12.3-inch panoramic curved display and zero emissions. It's as silent as the critics. To find out more, visit kia.com.au.
Kia, movement that inspires.
TVs,
fridges, mobiles,
treadmills,
dryers,
laptops,
heaters, speakers.
Want it?
Don't wait.
Snaffle it now.
Snaffle is the easy and affordable way to get what you want now. Snaffle has all the latest products from the biggest and best brands, all available to you for bite-sized payments. One subscription, one wallet, hundreds of products. So if you want it, don't wait. Go to snaffle.com.au.
Snaffle it now.
T's and C's and leading criteria apply. Walker Stores Proprietary Limited, Australian Credit Licence 393023.
Leon here. I trust Zen Energy to help keep me cool in the summer. Adelaide's own Zen Energy is resetting how we do renewable energy in Australia. As we know, solar is the best way to reduce our carbon footprint, build a better world, and save on power bills. It's not too late to access government rebates, so get in quick before prices increase. Contact our friends at Zen Energy and tell them Leon sent you for an even better offer. Visit zenenergy.com.au. That's zenenergy.com.au.
Adventure has never been bigger with Royal Caribbean and Phil Hoffman Travel. On board you'll find next level dining and game-changing entertainment, plus Royal Caribbean's sun-soaked savings. Save up to 30% off every guest and receive up to $600 to spend at sea. Whatever your budget, every inch of a Royal Caribbean ship is designed to wow you. Cruise until April 2023 to the South Pacific, New Zealand, Australia and more. Ends 31st of January. Visit pht.com.au.
The Barossa Valley is a great place to visit. You have history, wine, great food, nature, wine. What if you had one extra draw card? Your parents. Retirement units are available in safe and connected neighbourhoods just an hour from the city. We're talking about newly renovated 1, 2 and 3 bedroom homes from around $180K to $300K. They get the vine change and you get another reason to visit the Barossa. Win-win. Talk to your parents today about Barossa Village. Find out more at barossavillage.org.
1395, Adelaide's 5AA. This is Jade Robran.
And we're streaming live onto Facebook. I have to say hi to Sue and Linda, who have just messaged to say they're watching. Little wave to you guys. You might have seen me do something completely disgusting. Tammy's bought me in a nice cup of tea, which is very, very nice of her. And I put a sugar in it and I didn't have a spoon, so I got the nearest thing next to me, which is a texter, and put it in my cup of tea and swirled it around. So nothing goes unnoticed now that the cameras are on. Alrighty, we've got Trent Nikolic. He is our guest managing editor from drive.com.au, and we've got a full board of questions here, Trent, so let's fly through them. We've got Dave who's called in. Dave, welcome to the program. What's your question?
G'day, Trent. Got a couple of cars that I'm sort of looking at. One of them's a VPSS Commodore. I'd say good condition for its age, paint with no dents, anything like that. The thing that's appealing, it's manual, and the other thing that's appealing is 114,000 original kilometres. I'm sort of wondering what sort of money off the top of your head. I know it's a wild guess. And the other one is
do you know what they're asking for it, mate? Have they got a number on it?
They've got a stupid number on it, yeah.
Okay, look, I think you have to... Yeah, okay, look, it's not... Yeah, it's not ridiculous, but yeah, you'd have to have a look at whether... Because you said it was manual, didn't you?
Yeah. HSV enhanced as well.
Yeah, that's the key. It's going to be how many manuals are around. So the short answer for that one, mate, is if you can get it to a price that makes sense for you, I'd buy it, because there won't be too many manuals around, I wouldn't think.
Thank you, Dave. Let's go to Paul. Hi, Paul.
Yeah, hi guys, how you going?
Yeah, good. What's your question?
Yeah, got had the car in the wagon in the shed for over a year. Got mags and Sumitomo low profile tyres, and just wondering, about to get it up and running now, and so it's just been sitting idle. Because I've been rotating, when I was running, I was rotating the tyres every 3 months, like professionally, and that. Now, just wondering, would the tyres be okay? My fiancée, of all people, said something to do with flat spot. Or...
They could be, yeah, she's right, mate. She's right. They could be flat spotted, depending on whether the car's sat in the exact same spot for a year and hasn't moved. So that could be a thing, but that could also come out of them as you use them. How old are the tyres now before they sat for a year? Do you remember when you put them on?
Oh, probably maybe not even a year before.
Yeah, you should be fine. What I would do is I'd just make sure they're at the right pressure and take it for a gentle run. You know, don't go on the highway straight away. Take it for a gentle run. You'll feel if they're flat spotted, because the whole car will be vibrating and shaking around even at 60 or 80 k's an hour. So do that first, and so long as they're not flat spotted, they should be okay.
Thank you, Paul. And we've got Albie all the way from Albury. Hello, Albie. Welcome to the program.
Morning, afternoon, Jade. Can I ask Trent a question, please?
Absolutely, you can. Fire away.
Trent, good afternoon. I've got a 1988 VL Commodore. It's in original condition. It's got about over 200,000 Ks on it. What sort of money would it be worth?
A lot.
Albie, probably a lot more than you think, mate. What I would do if I were you, because it depends on things like kilometres, funnily enough, for vehicles like that aren't as relevant as things like specification and originality and all that kind of stuff. What I would do is I would contact Shannon's, the auction house. They auction and sell on behalf of people a lot of those sorts of vehicles. I'd almost guarantee it's worth more than you think it is, and a really clean original VL Commodore is pretty hard to find in 2022, let me tell you.
Okay, yeah, it is clean. It's original. The aircon works in it, the radio cassette works in it, all that type of stuff.
All that stuff's fantastic, mate. And that sort of originality, like to you and I, we might not pay much attention to it, but to the person who's buying it, things like having the original radio and cassette player and stuff in it is, worth its weight in gold. So if you're interested in selling it or thinking about selling it, definitely contact Shannon.
Albie, are you keeping it for any sentimental reasons, or is it just a car that you've had?
Car, and I plan to, fix it up and get it back on road. Well, it's roadworthy. Also needs its registration, obviously New South Wales. So I was just interested to see what it would be worth, because I've had people say, we give a couple of thousand. I thought the rarity, how the older cars, like Trent said,
tell people to take a running jump if they offer you a couple of thousand, mate. It's going to be a lot more than that, I can tell you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining the
Good luck
program,
with it, Albie.
Yeah. Please let us know how you go. It'd be interesting because it sounds like it's in really good nick. Trent, thank you very much. We're going to wrap it up. That was a quick half an hour and we had a full board, which we didn't get to everybody. So hopefully we can get in touch with them and answer all their questions again next week.
Thanks, Jade.
Perfect. Thank you, Trent Nikolic there, our guest from drive.com.au. Coming up after the break, we are going to be talking about the chicken shortage and why we're being encouraged to bring back the good old chicken roast.
Wow, this is a really fruity bouquet. It's complex, yet gentle on the palate.
Since when do you know so much about wine?
Since I WEA'd it, I took their wine appreciation course.
Cheers to that.
Cheers.
WEA-SA.com.au.
Wavell Mitsubishi and Southern Mitsubishi have amazing deals on new, demo and used vehicles with over 250 cars arriving between now and the end of Feb. The only problem is we need to make room for the rebuild of the Wavell Mitsubishi showroom. So every car must go. All new Mitsubishi cars come with 10 years warranty and 10 years capped price servicing. Get in touch with the team at Wavell Mitsubishi and Southern Mitsubishi, located in Morfett Vale, driven by Australian Motors, LVD 80.
Australia's making positive energy and there's more on the way. It's all part of our plan to reach net zero by 2050. We're rolling out rooftop solar at record levels, expanding snowy hydro, so it's the biggest battery in the southern hemisphere, and investing billions in projects like hydrogen hubs and seaweed for feed, yum, which means more jobs and even less emissions, helping us reach net zero by 2050. Find out more at positiveenergy.gov.au. Authorised by the Australian Government, Canberra.
Hey Adelaide, check out this hot weekend getaway to Uluru that hundreds of South Aussies have already enjoyed. Private jet charter flying from Adelaide to Uluru direct. Accommodation with breakfast, fully hosted touring, 3 days and 2 nights, and a stack of once-in-a-lifetime experiences like Field of Light. Plus save up to $1,000 with the NT Summer Sale. Uluru by private jet departing Friday, February 25th. Seats are limited from just $2,029 per person. Search NT Now or book online at ntnow.com.au.
You've selected your block up on the York Peninsula, and now you just want to be there every weekend. Selector Homes have been building transportable homes for over 25 years. They have a huge range of designs and, importantly, their team really listen and are totally flexible with design options. You're not only selecting a fixed price with no hidden costs, you're selecting the best weekends ever. Selector Homes and Building Solutions Display Village, Port Wakefield Road, Burton. Visit selectorhomes.com.au.
So what shall I make? Thai, Greek, Italian, Malaysian? What about a beautifully decorated cake?
Let me guess, you WEA'd it?
Yeah, absolutely.
When it comes to the kitchen, you can WEA anything. WEA-SA.com.au.
This is Adelaide's 5AA.
Good afternoon, I'm Michaela Kamareg. SA has recorded another 3,079 COVID cases today, while 2 further deaths have been reported. There was a costly and senseless crime spree in the city overnight, with around 60 cars having their tyres slashed. The federal government is preparing to send additional humanitarian aid to Tonga in the wake of a major volcanic eruption. And at the Australian Open, Aussie Madison Inglis has defeated Canadian Leyla Fernandez 6-4, 6-2. Mostly sunny this afternoon, 25. Right now it's 24. More news at 4 o'clock in As It Happens on 5AA.
Jade Robran on 1395, Adelaide's 5AA.
Good afternoon, Jade Robran here on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. We've reached 25 degrees today. Now, I'm really looking forward to this next chat. I spoke to this gentleman probably early last year. And it's surrounding one of the biggest questions on everybody's lips. And it's a question that I think the world deserves answered. And it is, where did COVID-19 come from? How has this virus crippled the world? Who is responsible? And around a year ago, a dozen or so of the world's best medical minds called on the World Health Organization to find these answers. Professor Colin Butler was one of the medical experts to call for an independent investigation. He's an honorary professor with the College of Health and Medicine at the Australian National University and is also an expert in public health and epidemiology. He joins us now. Professor, thank you very much for joining the program. Well, the World Health Organization has run its full investigation. We really haven't heard boo about their findings, so I'm guessing they can't give us the answers that we deserve.
Oh, thanks for having me. Well, they came out with a sort of mixed message. In the end, they couldn't totally deny that it could have been from a lab, but they tried to downplay that. So they said probably it came from nature, but maybe a lab.
Right. So to this day, we still can't determine lab or from a bat. That doesn't really help anyone, does it? Because if we don't have that answer, it could happen again.
Well, it could happen again, even if COVID-19 was in fact so-called natural origin. It could happen again because virologists are engaged in a lot of secret work, just in China, but in many countries, trying to sort of penetrate the mysteries of viruses. But some of this work, I'm convinced, and many others too, is very, very dangerous, and it could well be at the root of the epidemic that came from Wuhan, where one of these labs is based in China.
Colin, your line is a little bit muffled. Are you able to talk more directly into it or change? It's just a little bit.
Is that any better? I'm in a remote location.
That's okay. That's a little bit better, so that's fine.
Better.
So I'd like to ask you why the secrecy about where it's come from. What does it matter to China?
Well, one factor is that we know that the US government was funding some of this dangerous work in China, and so the US has got, skin in the game, but they could lose face if the truth came out that it was from a lab. And similarly, China would lose a lot of face if it came from a lab. So I think both of their interests to downplay the laboratory possibility, and I think exaggerate the natural origin story, which is what happened with SARS in 2003. But that was SARS. Many people call it a pandemic, but actually it only killed fewer than 1,000 people, and it was much easier to control. COVID-19 is a completely different kettle of fish. So, definitely the US and also the Chinese government have got a conflict of interest about finding the truth. Both of them desperately want it to be from a natural source.
Would the US agree that they've got skin in the game with this? Would they put their hand up and say, yeah, we have got money involved in this?
They may not admit it, but the evidence is overwhelming. A NGO in New York called the Eco Health Alliance, which has received, from memory, about $100 million. It's definitely more than $10 million. I think it's about $100 million from US sources, mainly the National Institutes of Health, but also from a mob called DARPA, associated with the US Defense Department. It would appear that the US government, through this Eco Health Alliance, has sort of been outsourcing some of this dangerous work in China, and there isn't any doubt about that. There's a debate about, how dangerous the US think it was. Part of the reason you're probably interviewing me was only about a week ago there was a revelation of some new emails. These were obtained by Freedom of Information. Yes. I've been in China for a long time, and this evidence was presented by two US senators. So there are many people in the US, including the US the government, at least in opposition in the Republican Party, who do acknowledge the US's central role.
Is there enough evidence out there that somehow someone will be able to find the answer? Do you think we'll ever find the truth one day?
Well, I'm hoping that we will, but it might still take, many more years.
Mm.
If the US were able to reveal all of the email trails and all of the evidence in the US, you wouldn't necessarily need the cooperation of China. But at the moment, as I've mentioned, the US doesn't seem to want to do that. There are other ways that the truth might come out. For example, the Chinese government, well, not the Chinese government, but the Wuhan Institute of Virology removed a very large database from the internet. They removed it in September 2019, which is potentially relevant to this. It's one of the many curious facts. Why did they remove it before the pandemic actually started? They claimed that the website was being hacked. But there's a lot of information in that, including the genomes or the genetic sequences of many, many viruses which they've discovered, in part with US funding. So that's one way that if that was revealed, I mean, there's someone in the US at the EcoHealth Alliance who claims that BNP also has these data. I've called repeatedly on Twitter for Dr. Dajak to reveal these data. So that's just one way. Another way, which perhaps might seem far-fetched, but it happened in the Soviet Union, is that you may in future have a more transparent government in China and a more democratic government, and perhaps when COVID becomes a distant memory, they might say, look, we did make a mistake in 2019 and we won't do it again. That might seem far-fetched, but the regime in Soviet Union did change, and Basmos led to the revelation of an anthrax accident in the Soviet Union in 1979. It took 15 years for that to come out.
Professor, where do you think COVID-19 came from?
Well, a year ago I was 50-50. But now I think it most likely came from a series of experiments that went wrong with an accident more than deliberate. I don't honestly think it was a deliberate bioweapon or anything like that, but I don't think the virus was deliberately engineered to be bad to humanity, but we do know that they were doing experiments, often under the umbrella of gain of function. Experiments called serial facades. They repeatedly put this virus through an animal model. These days you can have animal models, not just ferrets or rats, but they're called humanized mice. So they're mice, but with some human elements to them. And in some ways the mice behave like humans. And we know some of this work was being done in China, and not just in the so-called BSL-4 lab, the most secure one, but even in BSL-2 and 3 labs. I mean, I've been studying this closely for 2 years, and I've become more and more sort of upset and distressed by the sort of the cavalier attitude for all of these things, and that's why I'm happy to speak to the public about it. I honestly think there needs to be far more transparency and openness, and we need top scientists and also people of honour around the world. People like Mary Robinson, perhaps, or in the elders, to look into this in a fair way rather than just joining what I think is actually a whitewash involving very senior officials in the US government and also Dr. Jeremy Farrar, and as part of the so-called Global Preparedness Board set up at WHO. I think there's a lot of face-saving going on. And
the silence of it all seems very politically motivated, unfortunately, doesn't it? Would you still like to see an independent investigation still?
Yeah, well, yes, of course. I would.
Yeah, and I'd like to ask you just quickly, has anyone or a group tried to silence you over the last couple of years? Have you had any threats?
I had one indirect threat from, I won't name him, but he's not an Australian, he's in the US, he's got a Nobel Prize. When I first published on this in December 2020, I thought this guy might be sympathetic, and I sent him a letter. I sent him a letter and I sent him my article, which was just published, and he wrote back to me within 12 hours and told me that I should not go further down that route because it would harm my reputation. No one else has deliberately threatened me, but I think they get you by silence. They just ignore you. And, that's why I was part of the so-called Paris group. We published 3 open letters, one to WHO and one in Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, because we had tried to publish in the journals and they rejected. Eventually we got published in Lancet last year, in September. But of 5 papers I've been involved with, 4 of them have been rejected, or then there was also the first one which I published by myself before I became aware of the Paris group.
Oh, Professor, we've got a really bad line, so I'm sorry, I'm going to have to end you there, but really, really appreciate your time there. And look, we're all behind you. We all hope that one day we can find out where the origin was and how this all started. I think that the world deserves to know. We are going to take a very short break, but coming up afterwards, we'll find out what's going on in the world of sport. Rowie Sports Show is on next, and we've got Bix stepping in because poor old Rowie, he's got COVID. I think he's feeling okay. He spoke to the boys yesterday and he sounded quite chipper, so that's good news. But Bix will come in and let us know what's happening. And also I'd like to know your roast chicken recipes, because we're being encouraged to bring back the good old roast chook. So I'd love to hear from you. What are some good roast chook recipes? 8223 0000. We'll be back soon.
This is the sound of Julian's bargain price vacuum with deep express suction. This is the sound of Julian trying to fix his bargain price vacuum, which infuriates him deeply. Yes, this is the sound of bargain regret. When it comes to the important stuff, like insurance, don't risk it. Go to Amy instead, who offers great value cover you won't regret. Amy does. Before buying insurance issued by AAI Limited trading as Amy, read the PDS at amy.com.au. TMD also available.
The state government is moving ahead, modernising our state and creating thousands of jobs with its record $17.9 billion investment in infrastructure by providing better access to hospitals and healthcare closer to home, giving our children the world-class education they deserve, making roads safer and getting you home quicker, and improving nature-based experiences with our national parks and reservoirs. We're building what matters for all South Australians. Find out more at sa.gov.au. A message from the Government of South Australia.
You know us for our bright blue vans. Metropolitan Plumbing, Electrical and Air Conditioning. We are the proud winners of the Product Review Award for Plumbing in Australia for 2020 and 21. Did you know we offer $0 deposit interest-free payment plans, have no extra charge for after hours, and can also often be at your door within the hour? Metropolitan Plumbing, Electrical and Air Conditioning. Available 24/7.
I'm Travis Denham from Again Real Estate. It's often just one special feature that helps spark interest in a home. Outdoor blinds used to create entertaining areas really set a home apart. They add extra appeal to patios and alfresco areas, an investment that adds value for sure.
Improve, invest and add value with quality outdoor blinds by Country. Visit countryblinds.com.au for a free measure and quote.
Everybody loves their country.
Here at 5AA, we're all about supporting local. Farewell the Mainline Drive-In with their last summer of movies on the big screen. Pack the family, friends and even the dog in the car for one last trip. Book at wallace.com.au.
Glenelg BMW is now open for all your servicing needs. With next day service and complimentary loan vehicles available, maintaining your BMW is easy. Bring your existing BMW service inclusive package and book your next service at Glenelg BMW.
Cancer never rests, and for that reason, neither do we. Right now, our SunSmart program is helping protect and educate a generation of little Aussies. Our 13 11 20 nurses are giving one-on-one phone support to people affected by cancer, and the funds you raise help our world-class researchers unlock more answers. And tomorrow, with your help, we'll start again. Cancer Council. Every minute, every hour, every day.
$13.95. Adelaide's 5AA. This is Jade Robran.
Good afternoon, 3:47. I got a couple of emails coming in from our chat there with the professor saying, Jade, so good to hear an honest opinion, re the origin of COVID from that professor. Thank you, Andrew. And also Arthur, finally, someone shedding some light on the true origins of COVID. Well done, Professor. Governments know this, but are keeping it quiet. Alrighty, after the show, we've got the sports show with Mark Bickley because poor old Rowie, he's come down with COVID. But
Yes.
he's okay, isn't he?
Yeah, he's fine. He did mention to us last night that probably today will be the worst day, which is the second or third day, and then he should be on the recovery road after that, and he's going to be I think he's got to take about 10 days off, but next Monday and Tuesday he's going to do the show from home because he's expecting to be in pretty good shape. So next week it'll be Rowie back as normal, I guess you'd say.
Well, we love having you. So what's happening? I watched Thanasi Kokonakis last night. I had high hopes, and unfortunately, he just didn't have it, did he?
Yeah, well, that was probably one of the big stories of the night. The fact that he went into this tournament with such great form. His 2 weeks here in Adelaide, made the semis in week 1 and then won the whole tournament in week 2. He was playing a qualifier and you thought, you know what, he's going to do some damage here in the Australian Open. And unfortunately, he just couldn't get going. I heard him speak after the match. He just said, I just could not get going, couldn't find my game. And
you could see that.
Yes, and it's just so disappointing for him. But you know what, I think the fact that he's certainly taken some steps forward. The tournament that he won last week here in Adelaide was his first tournament, so he's got bigger and better things to come. As long as he can stay sound, which it looks like he's going to be able to do, that's going to be great for him. Of course, and a lot of great tennis tonight. We know that Ash Barty was in great shape as well. She was only on the court for under an hour.
I don't even think she broke a sweat.
6-love,
that was
6-1.
just so easy.
Yeah, she was just a cut above there. And there's some big matches sort of slotted in for tonight as well. Nick Kyrgios is going to play tonight. Now, he's had a very limited preparation because of COVID, so we're unsure.
Just never know what you're going to get.
What that looks like. Alex Dimonor is going to be on. Alex Bolt, the good young Murray Bridge player there, is going to be on tonight, as is Storm Sanders, who was here in Adelaide, and another great Australian talent as well. So plenty to look forward to. And another good news story, Sam Stosur, who has had a wretched run at the Australian Open in the last 5 or 6 years. She's gone out in the first round. This is her swan song. She's announced her retirement after this, and she had a win today, so she's into the second round.
Oh, beauty. I love that.
Yeah, and we're also going to talk a bit of cricket as well. Jason Gillespie will join us talking about the Big Bash. Of course, the Strikers on a roll. They've won 5 of their last 6. And Michael Vaughan, who was quite outspoken around the English cricket side, he called them spineless and many other things along those lines. He's going to have a chat with us as well about where they went wrong and what they need to do to fix it.
Oh, gosh. Well, does he have an answer?
That could be a long chat, that
Could be a very long chat. Thanks, Bix.
Thanks, Jade.
Okay, I went to the butcher the other day. I don't know if you've been feeling this and witnessing it as well, but I wanted to buy some chicken breast for a barbecue. None available. What about chicken thigh fillets? None available. What about wings? Nope, sorry, all gone. Have you noticed there are no chooks available? I certainly have. Dr. Vivian Kite is the Australian Chicken Meat Federation Executive Director, and she joins us on the line now. Vivian, thank you for your time. Where are all the chooks?
Oh, good afternoon, Jade, and thanks for having me. Okay, look, obviously you've seen it, and I'm sure other of your listeners have seen it. We certainly have a significant chicken supply issue happening at the moment, and this has obviously arisen as a result of staff shortages due to COVID-related absenteeism. So there's actually plenty of chickens out there on farms, but we just don't have enough people to collect them, to process them, to pack them, and to distribute products to stores. So these staff shortages are particularly impacting our ability to process chickens because some processing plants might be down, 50 to 60% of their staff. And the way that they cope with this is to drop some of their products out of their product range in order to cope and to concentrate on simpler products. So the products that require more steps to prepare or are more labour intensive to prepare, they're quite obviously the first ones that will be dropped. So there's some of those products you mentioned, the deboned products or fillets, or value-added products will be the first to go, whereas the simpler, less labour-intensive products such as whole chickens should continue to be available.
Okay, so you're encouraging us to bring back the roast chook.
Absolutely. We're certainly encouraging people to access the products that are available, even if they might not be what they would normally go and buy. So our suggestion would be go back to seeing what you can do with a whole chicken, or alternately have a go at actually breaking down a chicken yourself or jointing a chicken yourself. In fact, if your listeners go to our website, we've got a little video on there about how to joint a chicken.
Oh, good, because I was going to ask, where do you start? Because when you go to a shop and they say, do you want it cut in 6 or 8? I'm like, oh, 8. Never think about how they actually do that. So the prospect of having to do that myself, oik, where do you start?
Yeah, well, as I said, I'd just recommend people could go to our website. We've got a video link there that shows you how to go about it. And that's what we're encouraging people to do. Just have a go at some different menus and using, buying a whole chicken and going back to basics. And basically filling some of those roles that some of our staff are no longer able to do.
So, Vivian, is this butchers and supermarkets, or more supermarkets that have been hit harder?
It's all. It's across the supply chain and all outlets, basically.
Right.
So, from large supermarkets to quick service restaurants, also to butchers, although, butchers often have a greater capacity to take those whole birds and cut them up themselves.
And what about Australia-wide problem, or is it just here in SA?
It's Australia-wide, less so in Western Australia. It's a particularly severe issue in South Australia, but pretty much every processor across Australia is feeling these same impacts from staff shortages, and therefore we're seeing similar supply issues across Australia.
So, Vivian, all right, if we're bringing back the roast chook, how do you cook yours? Have you got a special recipe?
Oh, Jade, I'm not the right person to ask that.
How come? You work at the Chicken Federation.
I am not the best cook on this earth. However, even I can roast a chicken. So if I can do it, all of your listeners out there should be able to do it. And I just go for a very, very simple approach. If you like a nice crispy skin, which I do, I just prepare the chicken, stuff it with, for example, some cut up lemons, halved lemons, dust the chicken with a bit of seasoned or herbed flour, put it in the oven at about 180 degrees C, for example, and baste it occasionally. If the top starts to get a bit too crispy, maybe cover it with some foil, and voila, in about an hour and a half you should have a perfect roast chicken.
Sounds pretty good to me. Dr. Vivian Kite there, Australian Chicken Meat Federation. Sue from Christie's Beach joins us. Sue, what's your special recipe?
Hi, Jade. Nice to meet you. We've never spoken before.
No, I love getting your text messages, though. Yeah, thank you very much.
Right, chicken-wise, okay, just listening about the shortage, I get chicken necks for my dogs.
Same.
For their toothbrushes, and I can't get them anywhere.
Nope, me either. So when you find them, you tell me, please.
Oh, I reckon, and you too, please.
Deal.
When I roasted a chook, actually this morning for tonight's tea, because my partner's a shift worker, I took the wings off before I cooked it, and so the dogs have got something for their toothbrush, so that was okay.
That's a good idea.
But I've just recently discovered brining the chicken before you cook it.
What's that?
For 24 hours in, quiet place, in a brine with lemon, garlic, peppercorns, really anything you want, lots of salt, lots of water. Sit it in that so it's covering at least the breasts and the legs for 24 hours. And then this morning I got up, I drained it, and I've got like a desktop cooker thing rather than using the oven.
Yes.
And did it for 40 minutes. I brush it with melted butter, that's all, nothing else.
Oh, yeah.
And it was amazing. And you pull it apart, and because of the brine, like it feels almost like it's raw because it's that juicy.
I was going to say you wouldn't even need a knife, it'd just fall apart.
No, you just pull it. It is absolutely wonderful. I'm never going to cook a chicken the other way ever again. So, yeah.
Oh, thanks for the tip. Thank you. And if I find any chicken necks, I will SMS you and let you know where they are. Thank you very much for joining the program. We will do it all again tomorrow. Have a great afternoon. The Sports Show is up next.
As the world changes, spaces change. We should